The first thing I noticed was the silence. Not the comforting kind, but the kind that feels heavy, like the air itself is holding its breath. It was 3:17 a.m., and I was wide awake, or at least I thought I was. My body, however, had other plans. I couldn't move, not a finger, not a toe. My chest felt like it was being pressed down by an invisible weight, and my breath came in shallow, panicked gasps. My mind screamed at my limbs to respond, but they were frozen, as if I were trapped in a body that no longer belonged to me. This wasn't the first time I'd experienced sleep paralysis, but it was the first time I felt like I wasn't alone. It started with a sound, a low, guttural whisper, so faint I almost convinced myself it was my imagination. But then it came again, closer this time, slithering into my ear like a snake coiling around my thoughts. "Don't move!" The voice was neither male nor female, but something in between, something wrong. My heart pounded so hard I thought it might burst through my ribs. I tried to scream, but my voice was gone, swallowed by the suffocating darkness. That's when I saw it. At the foot of my bed, a shadow began to take shape. It was tall, impossibly so, its elongated limbs twisting and contorting as if it were made of smoke, its head tilted at an unnatural angle, and two glowing hollow eyes locked onto mine. I wanted to look away, to close my eyes and pretend this was just another nightmare, but I couldn't. I was paralyzed, forced to watch as the thing crept closer, its movements jerky and deliberate. This wasn't sleep paralysis, this was something else. Let me rewind a bit. My name is Alex, and I've always been a light sleeper. I've dealt with sleep paralysis on and off since I was a teenager, but it was always the same. A few seconds of immobility, a fleeting sense of dread, and then it would pass. I'd wake up, shake it off, and go back to sleep. But this time was different. I had just moved into a new apartment, a small one-bedroom place on the outskirts of town. It was cheap, which was a red flag in hindsight, but I was desperate. The landlord had mentioned something about the previous tenant leaving in a hurry, but I didn't think much of it at the time. The first few nights were uneventful. I unpacked my boxes, hung up some pictures, and tried to make the place feel like home. But on the fourth night, things started to get strange. It began with the noises. At first, I thought it was just the old building settling, creaking floors, the occasional groan of pipes, nothing out of the ordinary. But then I started hearing footsteps. They were soft at first, barely audible, like someone tiptoeing across the carpet. I told myself it was my imagination, but the sounds grew louder, more deliberate. It was as if someone was pacing back and forth in the living room, just outside my bedroom door. I tried to rationalize it. Maybe it was the neighbor upstairs or a stray cat on the fire escape, but deep down, I knew something was wrong. The final straw came when I woke up to the sound of my name being whispered. "Alex." It was faint, almost melodic, but there was an edge to it, a cold, calculating malice that made my skin crawl. I sat up in bed, my heart racing, and scanned the room. The moonlight streaming through the window cast long shadows across the walls, but there was no one there. I told myself it was just a dream, a trick of my tired mind. But as I lay back down, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being watched. That brings us back to tonight. The shadow at the foot of my bed was now inches away, its hollow eyes boring into mine. I could feel its breath, cold and rancid, on my face as it leaned closer. "You shouldn't have come here," it hissed, its voice echoing in my mind. I wanted to scream, to fight, to do anything, but I was powerless. The thing reached out a clawed hand, its fingers long and skeletal, and brushed against my cheek. Its touch was like ice, sending a wave of nausea through my body. And then, just as suddenly as it had appeared, it was gone. The weight lifted from my chest and I bolted upright, gasping for air. My room was empty, the shadows retreating to their corners, as if nothing had happened. But I knew better. Something was in my apartment. I didn't sleep the rest of the night. I spent the hours until dawn sitting on my couch, clutching a kitchen knife and staring at the front door. Every creak, every rustle of the wind outside made me jump. I kept telling myself it was just my imagination. But deep down, I knew the truth. The thing that had visited me wasn't a figment of my sleep-deprived mind. It was real. The next morning, I called my landlord. "Hey, Mr. Thompson," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "I was wondering, do you know why the previous tenant left?" There was a long pause on the other end of the line. "Why do you ask?" he finally said, his tone guarded. "Just curious," I lied. "I found some old mail, and I wanted to make sure it got to the right person." Another pause. "Look, Alex," he said, his voice dropping to a whisper, "I probably shouldn't be telling you this, but the last tenant, she died in that apartment. They found her in the bedroom. She'd been dead for days." My blood ran cold. How did she die?" I asked, though I wasn't sure I wanted to know the answer. "They said it was a heart attack," he replied. "But the weird thing is, she was perfectly healthy, no history of heart problems, and the way they found her, it was like she'd been scared to death." I spent the next few days in a haze of fear and paranoia. The footsteps returned every night, growing louder and more insistent. The whispers became clearer, more menacing. "You're next, Alex." I tried everything to make it stop. Salt lines, sage, even a priest. But nothing worked. The thing was still there, watching, waiting. Then one night, it escalated. I woke up to the sound of my bedroom door creaking open. My heart leapt into my throat as I saw the shadow standing in the doorway, its glowing eyes fixed on me. "You can't escape," it whispered, its voice dripping with malice. I tried to move, but once again, I was paralyzed. The thing stepped into the room, its movements slow and deliberate, and I realized with a sinking feeling that this was it. This was how I was going to die. But then, something unexpected happened. The shadow stopped mid-step, its head snapping to the side as if it had heard something. For a moment, it seemed almost afraid, and then it was gone. I wish I could say that was the end of it, but it wasn't. The shadow still visits me sometimes, though not as often as before. I've tried to move out, but every time I pack my bags, something stops me. It's like I'm being held here, trapped in this apartment with whatever that thing is. I don't know why it chose me or what it wants. All I know is that I'm not safe, and neither are you. If you enjoyed this story, make sure to check out my next video, The Whispering Walls, a true haunted house story, where I delve into another chilling tale of the supernatural. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more spine-tingling horror stories. And remember, sometimes the scariest things are the ones we can't see. Sleep tight.